sebagai orang muda mentawai sareket khususnya ibai di pupatonan sabeuga kuakai kaina ne ngangat cardeket khususnya anak negara waktu ibai di pardekat katumai hipane ihudna ibai di wa nganga sita ima pepe teredagai punu tete umai kawaga patu kaya buenuan niya bailiu sabe kukai buenuan niya ete pasikut buho
Panadat niya kurencana kai kukai kamus nane ako bukay katim kupatu kai kamoy kai bu sibara akademisi nah tapi kusepakati kai makeret nga ngamay katim Yayasan Pendidikan Budaya Mentawai kipa ikut na ibara kamus tamulay away kay tape makolowiya tubut mapenting baraway ki kamus
mai ki cakai ng masyarakat adat siberi kabaga kapulagay siya bagay tak mauju yara sabat leo puwagay siya masyarakat adat yate ipasi parod pasi jago pulagay siya siberi kabaga barania siguro teteret sosoa dampak niya ke masaigo ele takalipogian puwagay siya nganga tedda tubut ibaliu si makebalaita si bakat lagay sabat si beri kabaga mitramay kamentao ay si mauju boyro raitsa sabat pasi agay anungan si makol pasi jago puwagay siya nga masyarakat adat mentao kakay si bara IF tubut mangka ba may pasi romake inisiatif da si makolos kita na
pertama pasti teliti boy ki kosakata kual mekai ka sikebukat khususnya sikebukat si baraka sarereket ale padeda kukut kai format si makolo sabat kutido le kai pendapat ka sia si magai untuk pasti akurasi kamus nane
aku secara pribadi walaupun kurang waktu mau balik aku dukung dia kepatu mayru nek kamus kalau bahasa mentawai kan bukan nggak ngasih surat sebab untuk tato kata ke mata
sesuai kasih kola tak ragela yake nggak ngasih matawai oto kai Yayasan Pendidikan Budaya Mentawai kusul laki kai kamata kau si babara mulai sosoa kau ibara pasti gelajat nganga mentawai kek momoy harapan mai pasti gelajat kasih kola bui tak ibara nganga cuma tawai
kan tak mungkin orang mentawai itu menyatakannya dalam perasaan bahasa Inggris atau bahasa Minang kan berbeda ya jadi kalau hilang itu berbahaya karena orang mentawai kita semua tahu tak mau tahuaya kipa sipatunda bahasa mentawai pun ekspresi perasaannya berbeda dengan bahasa dengan orang lain seperti pada umumnya kan orang Indonesia bilang sakit hati tapi bahasa mentawai bilang mabesi baku madeureu baku itu kan ekspresi khusus untuk mentawai ya. Jadi sangat dampaknya ke budaya besar sekali.
to anek bukonia udah cimeru rencana mai kukai meca buko takoi sikasara kui kai bahin anek respon mui masyarakat kable usah ute mai bagai
harapan mai kata toga si bau ke masyarakat mentawai kau ima kere bagata tabangun mentawai melalui pasi gelajat arat lagai mentawai sabat pasirot nake arat lagai mentawai ka sosoa deret kawawai si babara menurut Yayasan Pendidikan Budaya Mentawai kurok make kai kudampingi kai masyarakat harapan mai masyarakat mau bekerja sama untuk pasirot nake budaya Mentawai ka wawai si babara curang
lives.
We are in the Chocó region, which is on the west of the Andes. It extends from the south of Panama to the north of Ecuador and goes also from the Pacific Ocean to the west of the Andes. This region has been almost exterminated, especially the lowland rain practically into African palm plantations for cheap cooking oil or biodiesel. And we have only 2% of this region left in Ecuador. They will never make money out of this. Even they will never recuperate the money they have spent by cutting the trees down. But they don't consider all the amount of time and money they have spent planting those trees. And if you add up all their work and all the resources they have spent here, whatever they produce, they will never compensate for that. They will never make money out of this. We bought this place about 10 years ago, right after we began to come here, when most of the primary forest of the lowland was disappearing, especially because of an artificial demand on biodiesel by the European Union to replace part of their gas tanks with biodiesel instead of fossil fuels. So most of the lowland rainforest began to be destroyed and became plantations of African palm. So I decided to come here and try to help in these last pieces of lowland rainforest. The people are just waiting for roads to be opened so they could sell the wood. In this area we have only 3 or 4 families that are really causing most of the destruction of the forest and pressuring for the roads to come. In a way, it's not because they are bad people. Unfortunately, it's a lack of education and a lack of conscience about what's happening to their own environment.
Como te digo, uno como padre, la alegría de uno es poder trabajar y poderle dar un mejor futuro a sus hijos. Entonces al mirar, al pasar por plantaciones, es como detenerte a pensar y decir, ¿qué es lo que uno ha hecho? Al ver todo destruido y que ponerse a pensar que en algún tiempo eso fue todo cubierto de bosque. Qué tanto de animales habían ahí y qué tanto de animales se quedaron sin casa por no trabajar adecuadamente. Creo que no se compra, no tiene precio para comprarse y lo tenemos aquí.
In the 1960s, there was an agrarian reform implemented in Ecuador. The U.S. imposed these laws in order to help the people and stop them from going communist. One of the things was to divide the land into the poor people. However, the rich people in Ecuador were the politicians, and they had the land, and they were not willing to give their own land to the poor people, so they opened these jungles of the west and the east of Ecuador. Each family got 50 hectares, and they were obligated to cut at least 50% of the forest in order to get the title of property. The logging companies came after that law and helped them cut down the forest. They didn't cut only 50%, but in most of the places they cut 100%. The people that came here to this area of after Rio Canandé, they came at the end of the agrarian reform in the early 90s, and some of them even a little bit later after the agrarian reform ended in Ecuador. So they were not obligated by the government to cut down the forest. However, they still do it to grow cows, as we see in this small patch of grass. However, most of the forest is still intact.
Mi nombre es Néstor Paredes, soy socio de aquí de la Asociación Tesoro Escondido. Vivimos aquí aproximadamente unos 25 años, entonces de ahí hemos venido desarrollando más que todo la actividad de lo que es el cacao, ¿no? Porque es una planta que se adapta al sector y también es una alternativa para el campesino, o sea, por la facilidad que presta tanto para la cosecha como para el traslado. Generalmente lo que es aquí dentro de la asociación es donde formamos un grupo de personas, entonces centrado ya podríamos ir en otra línea, con otra mentalidad y tratando, mejor dicho, de conservar los recursos que tenemos, poder mantener las áreas de bosque que están en el sector.
They want eventually a bulldozer to come and build a road. I've been seeing this since I'm here in the area since 2003, and the road never comes. However, the neighbors keep cutting more trees and more trees. And also that's segmenting the forest, which is really bad for many species because they cannot cross anymore. Like, for example, here, even monkeys cannot jump from one side of the forest to the other side. Eventually, if this road is opened, the logging companies will come looking for the wood they want, and the whole area will disappear. I cannot denounce it directly, otherwise I'll become enemies with my neighbors, and that would be really bad to become enemies with them.
El cacao para mí es uno de los más importantes porque es un trabajo súper fácil, que no necesita solo del hombre como lo que es el ganado, otras plantaciones que se necesita de mucho más cuidado y requiere más fuerza. No es precisamente que es un trabajo que necesite que esté esclavo ahí, como sucede con el ganado. El ganado tiene que estar ahí porque ya abrió el alambre, es algo más permanente que tienes que estar como más esclavizado el trabajo. A diferencia de que el cacao puedes cogerlo una vez así como está aquí, que es una madera algo similar a la mesa pero tapado con un plástico, tú puedes coger, regarlo y te puedes ir una semana y cuando regresas el cacao está seco.
O sea, en realidad, o sea, este proceso se lo hace por 3 o 4 días, ¿no? Dependiendo del clima o del tiempo también, ¿no? Cuando hace bastante sol, o sea, no es necesario unos 4 días. Entonces, es bien necesario este proceso porque eso le ayuda a darle más sabor al chocolate.
My name is Ronito. I was born actually in New York. And I've been coming and going from Ecuador since I was small. Finally, I went back to get a degree in biology, and in 1989, I decided to buy a piece of land in the Chocó forest. And since then, I've been working here, doing research and doing conservation in this region. My grandfather actually is my mentor because he was an adventurer and also a natural science teacher. In schools, he used to disappear in the jungle for months and months, and I grew up with his stories about his experiences, and that's what really motivated me to do this.
Pero por ahora lo vamos a partir de ahí. Con el machete lo que no se trata es de dañar la pepa para que no cortarla, porque el rato que le cortas no se fermenta bien. Entonces ese es el proceso. Y aquí está la pepa del cacao, pero cuando está verde. Bosques que están aquí dentro de la asociación están considerados como los más importantes a nivel de la costa ecuatoriana por la cantidad de biodiversidad que hay, ¿no? O sea, animales, la flora que existe también es bien variada. hay una diferencia, hablemos de unos, por decir unos 1000 o 2000 metros, ya se topa otra vegetación, o sea, diferente. Eso de ahí fue naciendo en todo caso la idea del cacao, ¿no? Y donde ya, bueno, se le planteó de que para poder conservar los bosques se debe de dar alternativas a la gente, porque no es solamente hablarse de decir, o sea, están bonitos los bosques que hay que conservar, sino darles alguna alternativa para que la gente pueda vivir y también pueda mantener el bosque. O sea, tomando en cuenta, como decía, pues la importancia que es la zona para el cacao, porque es una de las mejores que yo creo que a nivel de todo el Ecuador, la parte de aquí exclusivamente el sector de la provincia de Esmeraldas, donde la producción es muy variada, o sea, una gran producción, y también hay una producción durante todo el año. Siempre hemos estado, o sea, trabajando en eso, no utilizamos químicos porque, o sea, ya nos hemos dado cuenta que el químico, bueno, en realidad perjudica al suelo y a la larga es perjudicial. Y generalmente yo ando por el bosque, o sea, sé lo que pasa en el bosque, lo que hay en el bosque, y me siento muy contento de lo que se está haciendo, ¿no? Yo personalmente acá, en un área de 32 hectáreas, solamente voy a trabajar 4 hectáreas. Eso quiere decir que voy a dejar 28 hectáreas de bosque para lo que es en este caso la conservación, ¿no? O sea, tomando en cuenta, como decía, pues la cantidad de animales que hay.
Nosotros, como padres, lo que hemos hecho es darle cierta parte de tierra con plantaciones ya de cacao produciendo. Es una motivación para ellas que le críen amor a las plantas, pero amor a las plantas para ellas mismas tengan sus propios ingresos.
We have a project of chocolate to save the rainforest, meaning that it's a chocolate that's grown in places like this, so people could make some income from this crop. However, they have to stop cutting the forest. They are finding buyers for the cacao of the small farmers who still have forest and getting them better prices for their product. However, they have to sign an agreement that they will have to stop cutting more primary forest. There is many ways of helping. One of the ways is coming as volunteers to help us bring things here to the jungle. Another way to help us is buying chocolate that also gives us money to buy equipment or do the trips here. Another one is to come and educate the kids from the villages that are around. The few families that are here, they could have other opportunities if they were helped. They are struggling here for their lives. They will give their lives to the area and never have enough money to survive.
bạn ơi, mình lưu mình chơi. Vô lên, asa, con.
Kalau saanya tak bawa air, abi atau main mikir murid. Jate sali tu nak emat dah kenyami murid. Kubaan pawala kapong dalatak dalam lepu. Aje te otesan si bapak de tanah. Kubak nak kenyami gelak. Di sain tu. Larang bawa mikir bawa air. Kami bawa tercona air daerah. Em lebat ke saila. Mi bo cim masih madang lebat ke saila. Ana abi atu main mi kita. Ana tahun omain 67 euro jen mi gelak cin sainta.
2 years ago, we went up to Centerlang village. David and I had a lot of passion. I think we were travelling a journey as two New Zealand boys up rivers together. It was like an adventure of being 18 again, and including Artie, who was the guide, who's become a dear friend and who's on this journey. So we were up there, and we were with Pilius and some of the guys, Raymond, and some of the warriors that are on this actual journey. And there was a conversation started, just a natural conversation, and there was Pilius and Raymond and a number of the Dayak guys. It turned out they were talking about Long San.
And then that story started to develop, and then we asked a few questions with Parkoli, who was the chief of the village at the time, and he explained that the people in Settler used to live in this place called Longsan, and Rex and I looked at each other and went, well, perhaps we can make this dream a reality, and really the idea was born to then one day take, when the time was appropriate, to take some of the people from the village back to Longsan.
Kita pergi ke hulu ini, ke hulu Sungai Kayan.
Longsan?
Iya, Longsan.
Tapi kita ke Setulang, singgah di Setulang?
Tidak, kita pergi di Bayangkara singgah.
Oh, bersinggah.
Ambil perlengkapan di Bayangkara.
Dari sini ke Bayangkara berapa jauh?
Kira-kira 2 jam.
2 jam?
Ya.
Oh, dari Bayangkara ke Longsan?
Kira 1 hari lebih.
Aha. Oh.
Tuhan Allah Bapa yang sudah pada saat ini kami menyerahkan kami kepada Tuhan. Yang mana Engkau sudah menyertai kami sepanjang malam sehingga pagi hari ini kami bersama-sama kita ini. Tuhan, pimpin kami dalam perjalanan kami sampai kami bisa tiba di tujuan kami dengan selamat. Bapa surga, banyak Tuhan pada kami Bapa sudah diserahkan hanya dalam nama Yesus kami. Amin.
Amin.
From that, this journey was born, and now 2 years later, here we are, just returned from the journey, and it's been one of the most sacred journeys of my life.
Faith makes a man try to reach the Holy Land, but in the end, he's nothing. Faith makes a man try to reach the Holy Land, but in the end, he's nothing.
tata tilu.
Jafuro ti gua.
No bai ta la ta.
Ula cukup bengai na taga zai. Ida ngai ku hamon.
Bangi la.
Tangan nau tangan ang tag tesara ang na tesen taku sara. Nên là một pin cả đập cu phải xa cơ bậc cu nô bua bậc cu nhạc go bậc cu taram bù lu ha mê to giờ khi vừa sợ tên áo rồi cái anh mà do mô tô mí ba khi vừa sợ tên áo giờ qua ngộ bồ lỗ là
nó luôn xài như là của sự múa đông ta chứ ta sống nghe bà mình này có vài trình ý ta ya dăm tu yu mình mà trình là pu long sai nên mẹ bị vài na bà là vợ to nên mẹ bị.
Sebenarnya bukan masalah, menurut saya ini ya, ini bisa menjadi sebuah perdebatan. Ladang berpindah bakar dalam skala kecil ini yang dilakukan oleh masyarakat Dayak dari dulu-dulu. Ini bukan menjadi momok bagi kehancuran hutan yang ditakutkan gitu. Dan yang menyebabkan hutan terbakar itu bukan pembakaran hutan secara kecil yang mereka lakukan. Yang menyebabkan lahan terbakar itu adalah sebenarnya pembukaan lahan-lahan gambut yang dilakukan oleh perusahaan-perusahaan raksasa. Karena gambut ini menyimpan karbon dan dia susah untuk dipadamkan karena apinya itu tersimpan di bawah tanah gitu. Besok kemarau, apinya muncul lagi. Itu yang menyebabkan kebakaran hutan yang menjadi dilema. Bukan disebabkan oleh Dayak yang dari memang ratusan tahun nenek moyangnya mereka sistem ladang berpindah ini gitu.
In the past 24 hours, we've been coming through a lot of real incredible rapids. But this is the most turbulent rapids that I've seen so far. The skill of the captain of the boat, the ones that are piloting the boat, to me is unbelievable. That they're able to somehow get up all these different rapids.
Giờ ra mà mi cho bên một cái xã anh cả còn lụng xã anh cả này tôi bên bờ bệnh mi khi tôi bơi ra jalan mi jalan kulit kazu di safe ngay abad mi kulit kazu ang bora chứ mi meto bora ta sa mi cái xã anh ni bơi ra
Solo, Pat, Lamo, Anam, Tuju, Azo, Eon, Hulu.
Saya sangat merasa terharu sudah tiba di tepian perahu di Lausan. Bahwa kampung inilah tempat lahir saya, makanya saya terharu sekali untuk melihat keberadaan kami di sini. Baru sekarang aja saya sudah sampai di sini.
I feel at home, especially more directly. The spirit of the Dayak people really comes through the way that they, this is a divine law, the law of hospitality. This love, so it just transcends the language because we don't share language, but the hospitality, just look at everybody is working in harmony.
Beliau kayak kado sinar bocing sa anh dah. Misalnya, man harus mudik sa anh dah. Mudik sa goi. Man ta kena nak bay. Meme sih ha. Acha cái mặt đê. Ile to bo na te sa tại lại đi. Rồi may na te sa tại lại đi cho mày.
Bạn nè đó là tọ miêu. Ô te cái mặt to xa to nó có lồng xa anh ta. Ta sa miêu có sự múa đông nè. Jota sami ke ibu air cukup te abaan de lato kubaan demi meto demi omeng cukup te agi te pandau da bu air chân kuan da mi ren lokker no.
Aku bermalam di rimba, di tepi sungai suara, dibuai kedamaian sempurna.
Kalau kita ngomong tentang kebudayaan Dayak, kita akan ngomong tentang lingkungan di mana kebudayaan itu dibentuk. Jadi kebudayaan Dayak dibentuk oleh kehidupan mereka di dalam hutan. Entah itu menggunakan sungai sebagai media transportasi utama, kebudayaan untuk berburu, menciptakan alat-alat pertukangan, berburu dan pertanian, ladang berpindah, tari-tarian mereka yang sangat kuat diadaptasi oleh gerak-gerik burung enggang, bahan-bahan dari pakaian. Ini sangat berkaitan erat dengan lingkungan tempat mereka tinggal, yakni hutan. Jadi apabila kita berbicara tentang melestarikan kebudayaan Dayak, di sini kita akan berbicara tentang bagaimana melestarikan hutan.
Di kaki kayu raksasa, di pundak batu perkasa, ku rangkai puji bagi pencipta.
Main pala atas saja di si babai udik mirita adat dak bawa remi kalung saainya ta ya macam kadunaing cen demi ngeleng dia ta bawa udik mi kalung saain ta boera.
Karena lihat dengar cerita-ceritanya dia, dia mau cari garam harus sampai lecet-lecet.
Ya, garam
ya berhari-hari
mahal.
Iya.
Berhari-hari.
Padahal Indonesia kan negara laut dan kekayaan tertinggi, kenapa di garamnya tidak merata kan gitu ya?
Ya, akses.
Iya, itu makanya pemerintah punya akses, punya distribusi. Jadi semuanya biarkan dia masyarakat adat di lingkungannya, dia diproteksi biar dia tetap di situ, karena mereka nanti yang jaga lingkungannya ini. Ya, bukannya perusahaan kayu, bukannya perusahaan sawit. Bukannya mereka yang jaga, masyarakat adat yang jaga.
Sekarang kita akan mulai mau mendaki untuk menuju kampung lama, yaitu kampung Longsaan. Dalam perjalanan kita memakan waktu kurang lebih 3 jam. Ya, karena kita banyak istirahat dan karena medannya juga memang terlalu tinggi. Jadi karena ini rombongan banyak bawa barang, jadi kita nanti akan banyak istirahat, ada kurang lebih 5 titik tempat istirahat.
Ekon ang guda haso jilok sa nyinumpang. Teh lah, bigo asa aku teh. Oh, mau buat teh ginumpang. Ang jelos ne ha. Ay, salah. Lo hotel na tazo.
Inilah bekas daerah orang Maklung sebelum mereka pindah ke Setulang. Sekarang habis sudah orang di sini. Syukurlah kami sempat datang melihat ini kali. Saja, memang ini untuk ikir. Ya, daerah kuburan ibu saya waktu dia meninggal tahun 1968.
So, kita ibu anak. Ông là cuồng bèo sĩ gu và già nặng cái bạn lấy là cái là so lần hồi gây mất cái tôi gu bữa cái ta ông comment ta phải nhà cái gì giờ te gần nô là vật chi ra ở bên phố gu một địch bậc quý ức là phò giờ ông là ra cái lại cái thì gu ngầm phá ra em là vậy chẳng là xịt đờ một nó cụ ta vẫn là nhẹ qua nè lau ấy chẳng là xịt đưa lau ấy tên này bự là tô theo dành cho Maria vô mà rư rư một đích giờ phải rư lưng ưng nói te gà cho thật là xả lợ cả cho thật là nó rư vì ra cầm bà ra cái gì của anh ạ ông cũng này ăn mềm beliêu.
Datang padaku lagi, di matamu ada yang sembunyi.
Tidak ada yang saya kasih untuk ibu saya. Dia sempat meninggal dunia, tetapi saya yang lama hidup. Karena sebenarnya saya sebagai anaknya harus membalas kebaikannya. Tapi saya tidak bisa, tidak sempat oleh karena dia sudah tua. Apa boleh buat? Tersimpan dalam kandungan ingatan saya.
Kau sakiti aku, sayang, jangan kau pergi lagi. Sesungguhnya aku ingin kau datang dan takkan pergi lagi.
Ya, kalau saya simak untuk zaman sekarang, saya sudah sebagai orang tua seperti orang tua saya dulu. Saya sekarang mempunyai keturunan, anak saya ada 4 orang. Nasihat yang saya harus berikan kepada anak saya, pasti anak saya ingat. Susah dan senangnya tergantung di dalam hati saya yang sangat dalam.
Bờ tè hờ bật tè mà là phù cái ya bờ cái tè ya này mi cái tè cái tập như bờ cái tè to ở đây có mua cái đó giờ chỉ nghĩ là tè mi hay cái có tè có mua cái bờ tè ya này mi cái tè cái này mang mi tôi cái mi bờ cái tè mua cái đó là tè ở đây có mua cái đó mình chọn tè cái tổ bô là dạng mẹ đây chính là phù mi chỉ dùng sẽ tổ lăng kia này.
Tabe. Selamat hamalem, pahari samandiai. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival 2021. Earth Protector, Heal the Land, Heal the Future. And yeah, where's the spirit, everyone? Yeah. We are now still in studio, live from our headquarters in Renuwalum in Palangkaraya City, Central Kalimantan. And now everyone, we are in the day 2 and also the last day of Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival. Woo! Where is the spirit, everyone? Yeah, thank you for joining us for the day 1 and day 2, and then we have seen many incredible film, more than 20 film for from Kalimantan, Sumatra, Java, Papua, Ecuador, India, and also Malaysia. And yeah, and today we still have a very special sessions because the theme is Earth Protector, Heal the Land, Heal the Future. Well, we believe that the voice of the indigenous people is matter and they have the solution to our big issue that we are facing now in the world, which is climate crisis, disaster that keep happening now in Indonesia and all over the world. And you know, the indigenous people, not many, we are the minority of this world, but somehow our voice is matter and we have the solution, and then how we can work together with everyone to work hand in hand together to find the solutions. And now we are in this panel discussions, very special because we're gonna talk about how to be a good ally with indigenous community. And here we connected to through our Zooms. We have David Metcalf and also Denise, both incredible people that work with the indigenous community from all over the world for years. David Metcalf is the professional photographer. He traveled to many indigenous communities, especially in Kalimantan, supporting indigenous filmmaker, indigenous education, youth program. He also a writers and also a storytellers and indigenous art. And we have a Denise. She is a filmmakers, documentary film directors, writers, and also editor. She document environmental turmoil and community conservations in several indigenous communities, especially in Africa and also Asia. Hi, Denise, and hi, David.
Hi there.
Ya, selamat malam. Ya, David.
Malam.
Ya, malam. Hi. Hi, Denise. It's a morning for Denise.
Hello.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. And I'll talk a little bit about you, but would you like to tell more about your work and then what you are doing within the community? Please share, David.
Yeah, well, I've been living here in Bali for about 10 years now, and for, I guess, most of that time, probably 9 or 10 years ago, I started to travel up to Kalimantan and started to learn about Dayak culture and started to go into the communities and along the way learned a lot of things, made a lot of friends, and sort of initially was trying to kind of establish how I could help and how I could possibly work with the communities. And one thing that I saw early on was how important it was to have the indigenous people have a voice and to be able to communicate, you know, outside of their communities around Indonesia and around the world about the realities of what was going on in their communities, and whether that was around the destruction of the forests or preservation of their culture or whatever it might be. So I guess I sort of, as I started to build these, form these kind of friendships and these connections, then I looked at sort of ways in which I could then start to network and to sort of make these situations happen. And one thing I could see, you know, even sort of back then really, was film was such a powerful way in which to communicate, you know, the stories and films from the indigenous people themselves. So that's when I started to get involved in films, and that's kind of how Longsan came about. You know, I guess people here tonight have watched that 20-minute version. It's
the full version 60 minutes that we just showed, the 25-minute version then. So that was probably a good example of, you know, taking these Dayak people from North Kalimantan, from where they live today, back to where they lived in the forest, and making a documentary film to raise awareness about their connection with the forest and the importance of preserving it, and of course the beautiful culture of the Dayak people. So that was sort of one of the main reasons to do Longsan film, was to educate and bring awareness. But then I guess the concept of Indigenous film festivals started, the idea with Shinta, and we discussed about doing one in Bali. There'd already been one in Kalimantan and Palangkaraya before that, but then 2018 we decided to do the Indigenous Film Festival in Bali, and then we've done that now for the last 3 years. And that's then they heard about that in Malaysia, and they wanted to have an Indigenous Film Festival in Kuching and Sarawak. So then we did that in 2019, and we're planning to do it last year, but of course the COVID stopped that. So, and then Surya, who we brought out to the Indigenous Film Festival in Bali, the first one, liked the concept and the idea, so he started one in India as well. Shinta and I and some others went to and took some films about Dayak people or Indigenous people in Indonesia, and introduced Indigenous cultures of Indonesia into that film festival in India. So that was another really interesting, I guess, example of ways in which we network and educate and take these stories, you know, around the globe. And then we decided to do an art event, the Indigenous Celebration, which we did in Bali in 2018. And we had Indigenous people from about 9 different countries and about 150 Indigenous people from around Indonesia to come together over 3 days for music, for storytelling, for dance, and other aspects of Indigenous culture. And I think, you know, one thing that's come out of these events is not the events themselves are important, but it's the connections. So that's one thing that I've seen, many wonderful connections. I mean, Denise is probably a good example of that. And when you connect and you bring the people together with the same passion and the same genuine desire to work together, it's incredibly powerful what can be achieved. And I've certainly seen a lot of that over the years, you know, here in Indonesia and other parts, other places in the world. So
yeah. That's incredible, Dab, how you work together with the community, make a platform for the Indigenous community to speak up about the issue that happened in the community. That's incredible. Trung's film and also film festival. And we move to Denise. Hi, Denise. Yeah, Dennis is the filmmakers of the Chocolate in the Jungle that we watch in the show 3. The second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. Yeah, please share us about your work with the Indigenous community.
Okay, well, a little bit of background is about 10 years ago when me and my husband got married, we decided that we wanted to use both of our backgrounds to kind of spotlight conservation programs around the world, especially in vulnerable areas that or near rainforests that kind of needed attention. So we started in Africa. We were there for about 6 months. That's where we filmed our first film, which was in Madagascar. And then a few years later, I'm not sure what sparked our interest to go to South America. My husband had done a lot of work there in the past as a biologist. And he was reading about this program of using organic cacao to kind of preserve some of these last remnants of the Choco rainforest in Ecuador. And he found this man, Raul, who was the central character of our film, the one that was speaking English. And he was kind of heading this program of Chocolate to Save the Rainforest, where he was encouraging the indigenous groups there, or people that had acquired land there, because he was talking about how people were acquiring land through, I guess, a land giveaway like 50 years ago. To save their remaining land rather than sell it off to palm oil companies who were there trying to convince people that they could make money doing that. So the way to save it was to grow this organic cacao on their land and join the cooperative. And then they had a French chocolatier, and I don't know if it was a person or a company that was paying 4 times the amount for the organic chocolate, and that was ample amount of funding in order to support these communities that had the land down there. So we were kind of inspired by that, and we wanted to kind of spotlight it in a short film. So my husband contacted him, and he was very eager to have people come down there and to film what they were doing. So that's kind of like how that project started. So we went down there and filmed there for like, I think like 10 days, because we were in the actual jungle for almost a week. And then we were with the community that was growing the cacao for like 4 or 5 days afterwards. And so besides the film, which Raul has used, Raul said, I think he was born in Queens, but he has an Ecuadorian background. He's not, I don't think you would call him indigenous. Me and my husband think he's got European background, but he was born in Ecuador and he went back. I mean, he was born in Queens, but his family is from Ecuador. And he, like he talks about in the film, he often went back there to explore the jungle with his grandfather as a child. So he had a great desire to help preserve whatever was left of it. I'm sure during the course of his life, he saw much of it become deforested. When it was probably when he was a child, it was probably much bigger at the time. So what was I saying? So he's an example of a person, even though it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call him exactly indigenous, that we have stayed in contact with and grown, developed a strong alliance with, because even though when we were filming in Ecuador, they kind of had an organization or a company in France that was already purchasing this cacao. Now he's also moved on to Colombia, and he's helping indigenous communities there do the same thing. And we are trying to help him right now to sell the cacao to outlets here in the United States. So we made that film, I think in 2015, maybe 2016. And ever since then, for the last 5 or 6 years, our alliance with him and the communities have grown, because we're trying to, step above just the filmmaking and help them to find outlets for their products, because this product, the organic cacao, is what's really helping them to maintain the rainforest there in certain areas. So, because that's why we really went into all this, was to kind of spotlight environmental work. And it's like the alliances with the indigenous cultures and peoples came like later. It was something that came later, which is something I didn't think about at first. And it just came as we were making the films.
Well, that's incredible. Like Dennis and David, they both have a long time history working with the community for years, and they work with the various community also. This is a very quite a sensitive question actually, but and very hard to answer maybe. But I just really wanted to know, indigenous people. They have many indigenous community experience, colonializations long time ago, and then there is a distrust with another people not from the community because of this issue. And then I know that you work with different tribe, different indigenous community, and they have a different history, right? And then I wanted to know how you build the trust, how you work with the community on this. Maybe Dennis, you wanted to start first? Please unmute yourself, Dennis. Yeah, sorry, you can.
In terms of this film in Ecuador, or in terms of other projects in general? All right, I'll just start with in general. So our first film we made was in Madagascar. And we kind of just went there with a bunch of film equipment, and we didn't really know what we were going to do. We were going to travel to various areas. And then one of the biggest places that our first destination really that we landed was called Andasibe. And there was so much going on there with conservation work that we decided that we were going to stay there for about 5 weeks and film. And the way that we kind of got to I guess be friendly with the communities there was they were like our guides. So when we were going for hikes in the woods, we had to go with a guide. You couldn't go by yourself. And so we kind of started talking to them about, our ideas about wanting to like talk about what was going on here in Madagascar with the environmental devastation, which you don't really read about anywhere in the world. I never knew anything about what was going on in Madagascar. My husband might have known a little bit, but they have a lot of environmental problems there. A lot of it has to do with overpopulation and slash and burn agriculture. And so, you know, we became friendly with the guides, had some drinks with the guides, and just talked about like what we really wanted to do. We really wanted to just share with the rest of the world what was going on there, because they really wanted to get their stories out, and those stories were not being let out. You know, people were not hearing about what was going on in Madagascar. Even to this day, I mean, that was almost 10 years ago. I still hardly ever read about Madagascar unless there's like a big cyclone or something really catastrophic has happened there. So I think that's how like we approach them. It's that we weren't trying to exploit them. We wanted to share their stories. We wanted to tell people what was going on in the world, because sometimes when you do that, then other people are inspired to go there and help and do other things. And certainly people have reached out to me seeing our film about Madagascar and asked me like who they can get in touch with to help. There was one woman I was in contact with that started a school there. I mean, I'm not saying that my film inspired that, but she started some kind of, or a program to help girls go to school. And so she saw the film and contacted me and asked me questions about, you know, the community that we were working in. And other people watched the film online or at a film festival and asked me, you know, can I have some copies to show to my my church group or things like that, or to bring it to my community to kind of show people what's going on there, and so that they could take the film as kind of like an impetus to help in their own way. But I think that's the way that we were able to, and we always are able to align with other groups, is by showing them that, you know, we never make money off of these things. Maybe just like a tiny little bit. Like one of my films from Mozambique just got picked up by another distributor, and it's making $10 a month. So it's not like we make this for profit. We're making it because we want to show the world what's going on in some of these places that aren't really being discussed really openly in the media, generally speaking.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. First, sharing your purpose to the community, and then make friends with the community. That's very important. But how about you, Dap? Do you also do the same by sharing your purpose first to the community, and then engage another people to join your work?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think, you know, the colonialism subject, of course, is a very sensitive one, and I think that, I guess for me, I remember I went to North Kalimantan and I met with the governor there. This was about 6-7 years ago when we were doing Longsan, and his assistant, who I also met with, said to me, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And I said, "You know, I've come up to this village and we're making this film." And he just made a comment to me at the time. He said, "Oh yeah, you know, we get a lot of people come from Europe and overseas and other countries, and they make film, or maybe not make films, but they want to know about our culture, and we're very open and we're very, you know, very willing to share that." And then he said, "But most of the time we never see them again." And it sort of hit me at the time, and I thought, well, yeah, I mean, it's just another form of exploitation, isn't it, really? So I sort of thought to myself, I don't want to be one of those people, you know. I want to keep coming back to these communities and building the friendships and the connections. And really from a place of respect. I mean, I think that's the most important thing. And, you know, sort of trying to come into communities with these ideas that we have from outside and trying to impose those is the worst thing you could do. You have to learn and spend the time with the people and keep going back. So that was something I realized myself early on, you know, and that's what I've kept doing and sort of building that over all this time. But yeah, I mean, it sort of comes up sometimes, but look, I think most of the time, if there's this genuine desire to work together, and that's a key word, and to, you know, benefit the communities and work from the communities up, then whether that's through Indigenous tourism, whether that's through filmmaking, whether that's through education, through the youth programs, whatever it might be, then, you know, really wonderful things can be achieved, and we've seen plenty of that. So I just think, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it's just being very respectful, it's understanding, trying to understand something of the past and what's happened and still happening today, of course. So, yeah.
Like respectful and become a very genuine friends with the community. That's incredible, Dave. And everyone that joined us during YouTube streaming online now. You can also share if you have any questions to David or Dennis. You can just type it on a chat box. And actually, there is a one question here from Ranuel. What is the most important thing that you think people, non-indigenous, should understand when they decided to be an ally for the communities? David, what your opinions about this? What is your most important things when you that you should understand when they decided to be an ally for indigenous community?
Yeah, that's a very good question. To be open-minded is very important. I mean, I had this experience up in Palankaraya, or at least in a small village about 4 hours from Palankaraya, about two months ago when I was up there, and we visited this community, and we had a couple of people in that group, and they sort of came in without really understanding and the sensitivity of what the local indigenous community had gone through in terms of, they lost 90% of their forest, and this food estate program was coming in there and everything, and they sort of tried to kind of put solutions onto a problem that they really had no idea about. So I think, for non-indigenous people, I think it's very, very important to try and understand and to have an open mind and open heart as well in these communities where it's very, very sensitive. Not come in thinking that they have the solutions, not at all. That's can be very dangerous and can be very disrespectful. And so I think that's probably one of the most important things, I think, that I can say from my experiences.
Become an open mind. And you mentioned about the sensitivity, and also Dennis, you work in the Madagascar, and you mentioned that the issue that happening in Madagascar, not everyone from outside the community understand about the issue. And sometimes, like David mentions, the issue, especially about the improvement, is quite sensitive. And then, what is your opinion? What is the most important thing that the non-indigenous should understand when they decided to be an ally for the community, or make the story about this community? Please, Dennis.
I think that you have to be patient and take the time to really go in there and meet with people and learn from them and learn about culture, and not go in there and just try to do things quickly, or to think that just because you worked with one group of people in one area of the world that you're going to know anything about this group of people in this area of the world. And even if you read about this area of the world and these people, that you really don't know anything about them. And so you really start going in there and, talking with people, making connections, eating dinner with them, getting them to trust you enough to invite you over to have dinner with their family, things like that. That people are just very different. I think in a way, you could probably group together a lot of Western cultures, like to be very similar, but I guess non-Western cultures are not very similar. They're very different and very diverse. And that I think you just need to approach everybody a little bit differently. And you could also know that some places that you go into, it's not going to work out. You're just not going to mesh with the people. And it's not necessarily something about you or them. It's just things don't work out, like any kind of relationship. So you got to go in there, like David was saying, with an open mind, and to be sensitive, and with the time, to learn from people, and not with these high expectations too, that you might be able to form a relationship with certain groups, and other groups, it's just not going to work. And that's just the way that it is.
Yeah, it's true that dinner through many community that I know that talking with the people through meal is also one of the best way to get close to them. Yeah, and you mentioned about sometimes the connections is not work out, and then what happened if this happened to you? I mean, when you come to the community and they not open they arm to you, or it just not work out, what do you do?
In all honesty, it just really happened once. And I eventually just had to move on and abandon the project. That's just the only thing that you could do, because if you're getting so much resistance, it's just after a while, and I knew that it was never going to work out. I just knew that it was never going to work out. So there was no reason to continue. I think that you should just move on and try to find some other thing to be doing, some other community to work with that maybe you would mesh better with.
Yeah. But how about you, Deb? I mean, so when the thing is not work out as your plan, and when you also mentioned about the sensitivity about the issue, some issue, and then what happened if one community do not want to work together with you? What will you do? I mean, is there any way or your tips for your experience? Okay, maybe they're not really open in the beginnings, but after I do this, and then they become so very open the arm for me. Please share that.
Yeah, well, I had that experience one time up in a small village near Palankaraya, actually, when we took a dance group to perform in the village, and we had a group of photographers that came along, and what happened was there were some greedy people in that community, and they actually, even though we were going out there and doing this event, there was no money, we weren't making any money or anything like that, and some of the people in the community tried to get money out of the dancers, and they just didn't get it at all. They saw this as a money-making opportunity, so we didn't go back to that community again. So I guess I learned my lesson then, and so now I make sure that one of my allies, one of the Indigenous allies, goes out to these communities before we visit and check out the situation, meet with the elders of the village, the Adat leaders, and also the heads of the village, and then just find out where their thinking is at, where they're coming from, the way they look at things. Because a lot of communities I go to, I'm bringing in outsiders, bullays, for the first time, so it's the first experience of people like us. So it's really important that the community is ready for it, that they really want it, and we obviously don't want to impose anything. So I think that the sort of planning is a really important part of it. That's something that I've learned in working with the right communities, because for sure there's some communities that just they have a different mindset, perhaps. That's the reality.
Yeah. Some community can become very open mind, become open the arm for everyone that join, but some community are very close, and we have to really understand that the community, every community is different. They have different traditions, different history also, and that's why David mentions that you have to be open mind and genuine, and then how you build, you have to build this friendship, not for 1 or 2 years, but long years, yeah. But sometimes, in relationship, it's ups and down, It's not like a flat in the hard way, easy way, It's very difficult to maintain a relationship. And then, do you ever have an experience where your relationship, your alliance with this indigenous community ups and downs, and then what you do, and then to keep this relationship with alliance with this community? There.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can kind of think of any specific examples, but and like, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? We have our strengths, we have our weaknesses, and everything else, and it's the same wherever you go. So those things come into play. I think one thing that's really important is to keep egos out of it. So again, something I learned as a photographer, as an artist, sometimes people with big egos can get in the middle of the process, and that can cause a bit of chaos and upheaval. So to try and again get to know the people and keep the egos out, and be very focused on the win-win ways in which both parties can win. I think that's probably the best way to answer that. I mean, that's, I guess, why I founded the Togetherness project here in Bali about 18 months ago, and that's all about Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working together, and putting our talents and our skills and our passions and all that together, and then working to preserve the culture or creating sustainable jobs which Denise mentioned before, which is a critical part of the solution, I think, in many of these communities. So yeah, and that's been very successful. You know, we restarted the traditional weaving in the village here in Bali and created jobs during this time of COVID. So that's just all about taking egos out, people working together, not about money, not at all, about the genuine desire to want to do the right thing together. Yeah.
Agree with you that ego sometimes, even in normal relationship, even to a friends, if you have ego, and then it's become a very challenge for us in the relationship. And you mentioned about win-win. When we talk about win-win in the collaboration, it means like equal partnership, right? And what do you think, Dennis, in making this partnership alliance with indigenous people, when you come and then say that, okay, I come here and I wanted to do project with you, and then how you brings this idea of equal partnership to the people with the community that you work with?
I don't know. I think I just go in there thinking that it is going to be an equal partnership. Like it is. I'm not sure like what, I mean, we're not really gaining too much here. We wanted to spread the word about certain conservation projects that were happening around the world. And like I started a nonprofit like 5 years ago. So most of this work has to do with the nonprofit goal, which is to just share stories about conservation work around the world. And I think that's how we're benefiting from it, is that that we're able to do conservation work, and we're also able to help spotlight the stories of conservation work abroad that's happening in other communities that most people don't know about. In terms of what I really think that I'm getting out of it, is just knowing that I'm doing something to help the environment at large, because it's so important right now. Look, the stories that we work on all have to do with environmental issues. So yes, they have to do with indigenous issues too, but they all are developed with the environment in mind. So I think, when I go in there, it's not about, necessarily one person benefit. We're trying to talk about like having like a global response to these issues that are like so important, that are really important. And mostly everything that we've done involves work around the rainforest. And it's not just necessarily that the conservation issues have to do with the groups that live around there, but they are also bigger issues too that are affecting everybody. And I think that's how we go in there and make connections with people, that like these are the issues that are affecting the world too. They're affecting you, but they're also affecting the world. And so how can we go in and try to do something about it, even if it's in a small way? And so we could just go back to the film that we were showing, Chocolate in the Jungle. We made the film and it showed in a bunch of places. It got picked up for distribution. So people are watching it on a regular basis. And the man Raul that we work with, he shows it when he goes and he speaks about what he's doing with the chocolate projects. And my husband has gone down to film in Colombia with him and show, he uses these videos. He made short videos with him to show the work that they're doing and to also gain support for their projects. And we're also trying to help them like sell the cacao up here. So we're trying to expand these projects, to help the communities, but to also help, maintain this rainforest, which is helping us in the global community as well, if that makes sense.
That's incredible, Dennis, that you work to raise awareness about the issue that happen in the community, and also, to protect this rainforest. But when you make a films, when you make a story about the indigenous people, and there is the principle of self-determination, right? So when you, make the story, do you also, involving or engaging the, how you involving and engaging the community to also, taking part on this, making the story about the community? Do you also do that, or do you have your unique way in this making, in making the story of your films, Dennis?
Most of the time we're there filming, and then I come home and I put it together. But before we present it anywhere, I always show it to some of the people that we've been working with, so they could just check it to make sure everything is correct, make sure the language is correct and the subtitles are correct, and things like that. I've never really presented a project that I thought was near completion and like ready to be shown to people that I worked with that said, no, I don't think this is working. You should go back and change it. So for the most part, I've had a lot of luck where I've edited it to the satisfaction of the people that we worked with. So yeah, so I usually take the footage and then I go home and I craft it into the story myself, and then I just show it to them before I bring it to the basically.
Wow, that's great that you present your movie first for the community, and then they can check it, and then we can edit it if there is something missing, if there is something wrong in that, because we find that in many films that the story they make the story about this community, and then even return to the people to present this film, and then how they make a narrations of the community. That's why there is a conflict here about making this story with the indigenous community. And also David also is a filmmaker, no, he is a photographer, and also make some film with the community. And then how do you work, David, about with this? Do you also present your movie with the community, and then how they respond when they see the films?
Yeah, well, that's right, exactly. Like, well, I guess it's just the one film I've been involved with directly, this long son, and once we did that, and you notice in that film there's a lot of interviews with the Dayak elders and a lot of interviews with the people, so that it's coming sort of directly from them. But what we did was, once we did the filming and we had that first version, the 20-minute version, we went back up to the community and showed that to the community and all the people that were involved, and of course they were very proud and funny to see themselves on the screen and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's really important to get their feedback and get it, obviously, the story as accurate as possible. And I think with the photography too, because I guess that's another thing, and I've spent these last few years documenting many Indigenous communities through photography, and quite often I will get prints of the portraits, and get those back to the community, so they can put them on their walls, or the elders can show it to their grandkids or whatever it might be. So that's a nice thing that they always really appreciate. But again, it's being very sensitive and getting permission, first of all. But I find when that's explained, that's really important. Why we're there to document the beauty of the people and the culture and the kids and the elders and whatever else. And, if people get dressed up in their traditional clothing and things like that, it's all about a beautiful way in which to present the people and their culture. I think that's very important. It's not, which unfortunately I have seen in some Indigenous communities, where it's kind of like a bit of a show, So I think, being sensitive to that's also very important, I think, when you're doing media and documenting things. It's quite a responsibility. But of course, on the positive side, with technology now, and it's so easy now to tell the story through smartphones and then get out to a significant audience for almost no cost or very little cost. So it enables us a tremendous opportunity for Indigenous people to be able to tell their stories through these types of, media formats.
And I'm totally agree with you. When we make a story about the indigenous people, we have to make it as original as possible. Yeah. Well, time flies. Talking with you guys is really, I'm so enthusiastic to talk about this, and I can, talk more and wanted to, have more discussion with you, but we only have a limited time and we still have 3 minutes. But before we end this panel discussion, I wanted to conclude that when you work with the community, the first thing that you have to do is build the trust and also respect, and how you also have to engage the people, build the trust with a long years relationship, and you have to be genuine when you work with the community. And thank you, Dab and Denise, joining us in the panel discussions. And very last questions for both of you. How can we find your work? And then if you wanted to connect with you, would you like to share your maybe website, social media where people can find about your work? Please, Denise.
So our nonprofit organization is called Eyes of the World Films. You guys wrote it in your in the proceedings. It's films though with an S. Eyes of the World Films. You could go to the website eyesoftheworldfilms.com or eyesoftheworldfilms.org, and almost everything is going to be listed on that website. So anything that you want in terms of like our films are on that website, or there's a link to it. And then you could also send me an email through the website or connect to our Facebook that way as well.
Thank you, Denise. Please, David, share.
Yeah, I've just put them in the chat thing. There's the two websites. There's Facebook and Instagram as well, but there's David Metcalf Photography.com, and there's www.togethernessproject.net. So those are the two websites. There's also, and as I say, you just in Facebook put David Metcalf Photography and put Togetherness Project, and the same on Instagram, and you'll find those. So those are the two main areas. But look, I just wanted to conclude to say thanks so much, Sue, and congratulations to you guys for putting on another wonderful and really important Indigenous Film Festival, and really just to thank you guys for all the incredible energy and passion and courage that you do to fight for your culture and your lands. And I'm just in awe of you guys. I think your whole team there are absolutely amazing. So keep up the fight, and hopefully many, many, many more will join, So thank you.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you, Dennis. Closing remark maybe from Dennis. David already say his closing remark. Please, Dennis, if you have anything that you wanted to say, please.
Well, I think that this whole experience, and it's been going on almost about 10 years, has just been so satisfying, and I've loved it. I've loved meeting all these different people from all around the world, and for the most part, 95% of the times, I think we've built really strong relationships. And it's interesting building strong relationships with people in so many cultures, and it just goes to show that so many people around the world really do have a lot of common ground. And we're not so different from each other just because I'm from this one area and you're from the other area. And it's always worth going in and trying to meet people and trying to establish relationships. And just because you get burnt once or twice along the road doesn't mean that you should just give up, because most of the time you go on to another place and that relationship and new relationships are able to be born. And yeah, it's just been a really wonderful experience, and I've really enjoyed making the films, and I've really enjoyed the projects that have come out of the films, and I really feel like I'm doing a little bit of something, to help with conservation, to help with the environment, to help, spread the word about what's going on in certain areas of the world that most people don't hear about from their own media.
Yeah, that's incredible, Dennis. Please continue. Keep doing what you are doing. That's incredible. Thank you also, David Metcalf, that joined us from Bali, and also Dennis that early in the morning. And this is the end of the Q&A panel discussion, how to be a good ally with the indigenous people. And yeah, this is the end of the show 5, but please stay with us, because after this we have a very special closing ceremony. Please give applause, everyone. Yeah. That's incredible. Thank you everyone that worked very hard behind this camera. And yeah, please stay with us. After this, we have a closing ceremony, very special one, and also to close these 2 days Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival. Thank you for joining us for the first day, and also today the day 2. And see you soon in a couple of minutes. Bye.
There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. In this place, it was brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you feel there's no hurt and sorrow. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space, make a better place, heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. There's a place in your heart, and I know that it is love. In this place, it was brighter than tomorrow. And if you really try, you'll find there's no need to cry. In this place, you will, there's no hurt and sorrow. There are ways to get there if you care enough for the living. Make a little space, make a better place, heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. Make a better place for you and for me.
Wow. Welcome back to Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival 2021.
Earth Protector, heal the land,
heal the future.
Wow. Yay! Oh my God.
Now we are at the end of the show.
Wow.
And
the last day of the Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival, the day 2.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And there is something actually I want to share personally, not only for all of us here, but also to our audience. Actually, our friends just had the practice. Actually, this is just
last minute
without any preparation, and our friends had the practice over there. And Sumarni has this discussion, panel discussion about how to be a good ally with our other friends, right? And suddenly I just feel like a bit sentimental in my heart because our earth, our world is not in okay condition right now. And maybe I would like to ask Onit to sing once again the chorus, and then we can just really think about how actually we want to make this world become a better place for all of us. So rapnya sekali lagi, and then let's take a moment to really get these songs, you know, as something not only on our mouth but also in our souls.
Okay. make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me.
Actually, when we sing this song, I almost cry, honestly.
And I cried.
You did cry, yeah, because it's quite difficult for me. I serve many Q&A with bringing the issue that's the very difficult and sensitive issue about the destructions that happen in your land. And talking about that, every time I'm talking about my experience, especially forest fires, I saw with my own eyes the babies, the grandmothers, the mothers that suffering, and children that suffering because of that. I never ever I cannot cry. In every discussion, in every panel that I invited to be a speakers, and then yesterday the filmmakers not only talk about the film that they make, but also the problem that the community face. That's it's very difficult.
Ya, dan kemarin juga waktu di sesi Climate and Natural Resources kita mendengar ya dari teman-teman kita dari Nusa Tenggara Timur. We even took a time, like a minute, to pray for the victims of the flood and the landslide. And
jadi pengen nangis juga. Aduh. Jadi di Nusa Tenggara Timur itu mereka mengalami bencana ya, banjir di awal tahun, dan juga bukan hanya di Nusa Tenggara Timur tapi juga di Kalimantan Selatan, di Papua juga sebenarnya mengalami bencana alam. Bencana ini khususnya di Kalimantan ya, karena kita khususnya di Ranwelum sendiri kita langsung ke lokasi bencana ketika itu terjadi, dan kita ngelihat kehancuran desa-desa yang benar-benar hancur, rumah hancur kayak gitu, dan itu juga yang terjadi di Nusa Tenggara Timur. Dan kemarin Lambert juga bercerita bahwa sekarang mereka akan mengalami salah satu bencana yang cukup besar, yaitu erupsi gunung
jadi kalau kita bicara soal pemenuhan hak masyarakat adat ya, tentu saja mungkin bagi beberapa orang ini adalah sebuah hal yang kayak, hey, you talk about climate, you talk about emisi rumah kaca kan ya, carbon mitigation and so on gitu. Dan while you are doing your research, and then you have these concepts about, oh, this animal gets extinct, okay, we have to protect this animal, and this land get lost, rainforest, and we have to protect it and so on. But for us as an indigenous communities, it hits us different. Jadi kalau untuk kita masyarakat adat, ini kita bukan hanya bicara sebuah permasalahan yang kayaknya bisa diselesaikan dengan riset, tidak teman-teman. Tetapi bagi kita sebagai masyarakat adat yang hidup di tanah ini, yang tanah ini adalah rumah untuk kita, because this is the native land, this is our home, and this is where we grow, right? This is where our blood flow. Jadi itulah kenapa tadi ketika seperti ada Helena dari Papua, kemudian Ibu Iramaya juga dari Aceh, ada Desi dari Kalimantan, mereka adalah orang-orang yang sangat berani untuk berjuang. Mereka berada di garis depan, bahkan walaupun dengan penuh resiko. There are threats like from the government or from police, right? They did the protest, and then they tried to stop the company. They tried to restore the area that being destroyed. They trying to protect it, the area that being destroyed by the companies, and it cost them a lot. So the questions right now is how will we respond to this? Bagaimana kita akan merespon terhadap perjuangan para masyarakat adat yang ada di garis terdepan? Jadi environmental battle itu bukan hanya sekedar kalimat saja, tetapi ini adalah pertempuran yang nyata di lapangan yang melibatkan hidup mati dan kesejahteraan dari sebuah bangsa, saya katakan sebuah grup etnik. Jadi this is very very important for us right now to really understand about the context of this issue, and that's how also when we hosted this International Indigenous Film Festival, we simply not only want to bring our voices, but also we try to change the narrative. We try to change what's happening right now in the context of indigenous people.
And also to do that, we have to work together, and that's why in the previous panel discussions with David Metcalf and also Denise, we talk about how to be a good ally, and they mentioned about the most important thing is your genuines. You have to respect the community, and also you have to build this trust with the people.
Dan tentunya sangat penting bagi kita teman-teman semua untuk terus proaktif dalam mencari solusi ya, karena tadi Sumarni juga menyebutkan bagaimana bencana alam ini bukan hanya menghancurkan rumah, bukan hanya menghancurkan penghidupan dari masyarakat, tetapi juga merenggut nyawa dari orang-orang yang dikasihi begitu. Ketika kami ada di Kalimantan Selatan pada awal tahun ini, kami mengunjungi satu desa yang luluh lantak karena banjir bandang di Barabai, namanya Desa Alat dan area sekitar Hantakan. Jadi benar-benar rumah itu hancur, hanya sisa fondasinya saja. Dan ketika kami berbicara dengan anak-anak kecil di sana, mereka ternyata menderita trauma psikologis gitu sesudah kejadian itu. So imagine what will happen to our future generations with this kind of traumatic event after they survive these deadly environmental disasters.
And also the elders told us also that this kind of disaster never happened in 40 years. This kind of big flood that not only happened in South Kalimantan but also in Central Kalimantan. And in the end of years 2020. Jadi para orang-orang masyarakat itu, para penutua itu juga cerita, sepanjang hidup saya hidup di desa, karena kita mengunjungi 6 kabupaten di Kalimantan Tengah yang mengalami banjir. Waktu itu menyampaikan langsung bantuan. Banjirnya itu di atas itu orang setinggi 185 cm itu udah tenggelam. Bayangkan kita yang kecil-kecil kurik-kurik tuh buang hete, astaga, mana jak tahu hanangui kia, astaga.
Mengapung.
Ya mengapung saya. Untuk
kami antar bantuan waktu itu mengapung dengan baju face life itu, ya. Berenang, jadi antar bantuan tuh berenang.
Ya kayak gitu. Jadi sangat luar biasa kata mereka, banjir itu mereka bisa sampai sebulan katanya itu mereka orang-orang tua ya, mereka kan dipindahkan biasanya, mereka dibuatin tempat shelters, shelter bahasa Indonesia,
tempat pengungsian.
Iya, tempat pengungsian itu mereka nggak mau. Kenapa? Karena susah bawanya katanya, harus digotong para nenek-nenek, terus ada juga ibu sama bayinya yang tetap bertahan walaupun itu banjir, walaupun mereka udah buat rumah di dalam rumah, itu paham nggak? Jadi itu banjir di rumah ya setinggi 2 meteran, itu mereka bikin pakai kayu gitu di antara dinding-dinding. Jadi mereka tinggal di atas kayu itu yang hampir menyentuh atap, dan mereka nggak bisa masak, mereka makannya itu batang pisang karena sudah nggak punya bahan makanan lagi dari batang pisang. Bertahan selama 1 bulan dengan syukurnya karena mereka bertani ya, jadi masih punya stok beras. Ikan masih bisa dicari katanya. Tapi bikin api itu tidak bisa, padahal salah satu masalah terbesar ketika banjir itu adalah dingin ya, jadi makanya banyak yang sakit waktu itu.
Dan inilah fakta yang harus kita hadapi buat teman-teman semua. So for your information also, right now the fire season already started here in Kalimantan, and this fire already happened here since 1997. So this is a big deal for all of us and a responsibility. We know like in some other areas, in other part of the world, like Turkey also suffered this fire, right? The big fires happen in Turkey, and also we heard like last year Amazon, and then also Australian and California fire. So we really need to understand that our earth is not okay right now, and we have to take actions right now. And indigenous community are at the center of environmental protections, at the center of environmental battles. So that's why we have to invest and support the communities that have been fighting on the ground.
Yeah, fighting the fires, we're talking about the fire is not an easy word.
Right.
And something that people have to know that you put your own life. Kamu bertaruh nyawa ketika memadamkan api. Mungkin teman-teman di sini belum ada yang tahu ya, dalam 2 minggu terakhir itu ada kebakaran di Barito dan satu pemadam itu nyawanya
Sudah
terenggut
meninggal.
karena memadamkan api. So
Yeah.
that you can imagine how hard the people that in the front line fighting these situations, yeah. And then usually most of the time the one that fight in the front line is the indigenous community and the local people.
And not only in Kalimantan, we also have our brothers and sisters from other indigenous groups that have been fighting so hard for their environment, fighting to defend their lands from the expansion of extractive industry. And some of them are arrested, some of them are sent into jail because they are blamed as the one who started the fire, they are blamed as the one who disturb the activities of the companies. And this is the reality that we have to speak about and address about, and that's the purpose of this Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival. This is not a common festival where we're happy and then like have this euphoria and yeah, my film is best, my film is good, and then like this such kind of hype. No, but we really want our message to be heard beyond our communities in Indonesia and beyond, and to by all global audience in the world. And now talking about the films, we have seen like 5 shows, right, Sumani? So we already had these 5 shows that talk in different topics. We have the first show on the traditional farming,
Second show about the natural resources, landscape and implement battle, and show 3 climate and natural resources.
And then show 4 we talk about the community and the forest. And then show 5
community and forest.
No, it's your panel. It's your panel. How to be a good ally. So, all right, guys. So it's not only because of the mixed feeling here, but everyone is already tired, but our spirit is burning inside. Yeah. And we would like to thank all the filmmakers that have been involving in these past 2 days of screening, and not only because you already made incredible films, amazing films, and also deliver us to understand more about the issue in your communities, but also because you have been taking the part in the celebrations of the indigenous rights. As we know, tomorrow we are going to commemorate the International Day of the World Indigenous People. And it's like now also in national level ada teman-teman aman yang juga besok akan merayakan HIMAS ya, Hari Internasional Masyarakat Adat. Teman-teman bisa cek bahwa besok akan ada sarasehan, diskusi dan juga panggung budaya. Itu semua bisa diakses melalui YouTube dan juga Facebook dari teman-teman aman. Dan selanjutnya ya dalam 30 menit ke depan kita akan berbicara juga, bukan berbicara sebenarnya, membacakan deklarasi hak-hak masyarakat adat. So talking about the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People, actually this is not being known commonly actually. Because there are so many indigenous groups right now that still do not know that they have rights, and it's already being recognized by the UN.
Yeah. Big recognition, even the world already recognized the right of the indigenous people, yeah.
Right, and just like a few days ago, I talked with Dongria Kon community from Odisha, from India. That's the first time for them to join through Instagram Live, and they said this is the first time also we know about the celebrations of the world indigenous people, because they never know about that before. The government never tell them, and also their rights has not been recognized yet in the country. Just like in Indonesia, actually, our right has not been recognized yet. Even though, well, some government also mentioned, we recognize indigenous people, but in fact on the ground there is no enough legal protections for us.
Especially for the land, the tenurial right. Tenurial is like your right to use the land, maintain the lands, but somehow many communities in Indonesia do not have this tenurial right.
Ya, dan bicara tentang hak-hak masyarakat adat, tentunya teritori itu adalah hal yang paling penting untuk teman-teman semua. Dan bicara soal hak masyarakat adat, tentu saja ini bukan hanya tugas dari organisasi-organisasi adat atau lembaga-lembaga keadatan ya, tetapi ini adalah tugas kita semua sebagai bagian dari komunitas adat. Ini adalah tugas kita semua sebagai orang-orang muda yang tentunya bertanggung jawab untuk generasi mendatang. Dan kita akan melihat di sini, saya akan membacakan United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People. Saya tidak akan membacakan semuanya, but just to let you know that actually we have these 46 articles on the rights of indigenous people. Jadi ada 46 pasal sebenarnya kita sudah diakui secara internasional untuk seluruh masyarakat adat di dunia.
Ya, jadi dari 46 pasal ini menyangkut berbagai hal ya, termasuk salah satunya adalah hak untuk menggunakan lahan, hak pengakuan atas budaya mereka juga. Dan sebentar lagi Kak Sinta akan membacakan hak-hak tersebut.
Yes, ini tentunya panjang ya, ada 32 halaman, tetapi saya tidak akan membacakannya semua, hanya beberapa poin saja untuk bukan hanya untuk edukasi, tetapi untuk affirming for us that we have rights and we have to know what is our right and we have to be proud of it and claim it actually.
Maybe you will. This is because in English lah, so I will translate in Indonesia. So our friends also can understand what's the meanings.
Yeah, sure. So here, United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People.
Deklarasi Persatuan Bangsa-Bangsa atas hak masyarakat adat.
The General Assembly, taking note of the recommendation of the Human Rights Council contained in its resolutions on 29 June 2006, and recalling by which it decided to defer consideration and action on the declaration and adopt the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous People as contained in the present resolution.
Jadi dari General Assembly-nya mengakui hak masyarakat adat dan sebagai berikut.
Guided by the purposes and principles and good faith in the fulfillment of the obligation.
Mengikuti peraturan, langkah-langkah, prinsip.
Affirming that indigenous people are equal to all other people.
Mengakui bahwa masyarakat adat itu setara dengan masyarakat lainnya.
And affirming further that all doctrines, policies, and practices based on or advocating superiority of people or individual on the basis of national origin or racial.
Mengakui lebih lanjut bahwa doktrin, kebijakan, dan advokasi mengenai superiority atau individuality dari people, nations, rasis, agama, etnik, dan budaya.
Yes, and reaffirming the indigenous people in the exercise of their rights should be free from discrimination.
Dan semua masyarakat adat harus bebas dari diskriminasi.
And concern the indigenous people have suffered from historic injustice as a result of dispositions of their lands and their colonization.
Mengakui bahwa masyarakat adat mengalami diskriminasi, histori penjajahan.
And recognizing the urgent need to respect and to promote the inherent rights of indigenous people from their political, economic, and social structures and from their cultures, spiritual traditions, histories, and philosophies, including their rights to their land and territory and resources.
Mengakui kebutuhan yang krusial untuk mengakui, untuk mempromosikan hak dari masyarakat adat mengenai kebijakan politik, ekonomi, sosial, struktur, ada bagian dari budaya mereka, spiritual dan tradisi.
Recognizing the urgent need to respect and promote the rights of indigenous people affirmed in agreements with states or country.
Mengakui bahwa hak masyarakat adat harus diakui oleh negara.
Welcoming the fact that indigenous people are organizing themselves for political, economic, social, and cultural enhancement.
Mengakui bahwa masyarakat adat bisa memimpin organisasi mereka sendiri.
Convinced that control by indigenous people over development, affecting them and their land, territory, and resources.
Mengakui bahwa masyarakat adat bisa mengontrol wilayah mereka dan natural dan sumber daya yang mereka miliki.
Recognizing that respect for indigenous knowledge, culture, and traditional practices contributes to sustainable development and proper management of the environment. Mengenali bahwa menghormati masyarakat adat, budaya dan tradisional praktek mereka itu berkontribusi kepada pengelolaan lingkungan yang berkelanjutan. Emphasizing the contributions of the demilitarizations of the land and territories of indigenous people to peace.
Kontribusi dan masyarakat adat akan tanahnya dan teritorinya.
Recognizing the rights of indigenous family and communities in training, education, and well-being of their children, consistent with the rights of the child.
Mengakui bahwa masyarakat adat memiliki hak untuk mendapatkan pendidikan dan training untuk anak-anaknya.
Bearing in mind that nothing in this declaration may be used to deny any people of their rights.
Mengakui bahwa deklarasi ini tidak akan menolak satu orang pun atas hak mereka.
Convinced that the recognitions of the rights of indigenous people in this declaration will enhance cooperative relations between the country and indigenous people.
Mengakui bahwa pengakuan atas masyarakat adat ini, hak masyarakat ini harus diakui juga oleh negara.
Based on principle of justice,
berdasarkan prinsip keadilan,
demokrasi,
respect for human rights, pengakuan atas hak asasi manusia,
non-discrimination,
tidak ada diskriminasi,
and good intention,
dan intention yang bagus.
Yeah, we still have a few here. Recognizing and reaffirming,
mengakui,
the indigenous individuals are entitled without discrimination to all human rights by international law.
Mengakui bahwa masyarakat adat tidak boleh mengalami diskriminasi dan diakui berdasarkan hukum internasional.
Recognizing that the situations of indigenous people varies from region to region and from country to country.
Mengakui bahwa situasi dari masyarakat adat itu berbeda dari satu negara ke negara lainnya dan satu daerah ke daerah lainnya.
Ya, jadi itu adalah pengakuan dari United Nations, dari hukum internasional atas hak-hak masyarakat adat, dan selanjutnya ada pasal 1 sampai 46 di mana itu mencakup tentang hak atas teritori, hak atas pendidikan, hak untuk hak hidup, termasuk seperti di Kalimantan hak untuk kita bisa bernafas ya. Jadi kita seharusnya bisa bernafas dengan bebas di Kalimantan tanpa ada kabut asap, kan begitu sebenarnya. And of course every indigenous individual has the right to opt nationality.
Memiliki hak untuk memiliki kewarganegaraan.
Dan indigenous people shall not be forcibly removed from their land or territory.
Dan masyarakat adat tidak boleh dikeluarkan dari teritori mereka.
And indigenous people have the right to practice their cultural tradition.
Dan masyarakat adat harus memiliki hak untuk melakukan tradisi dan budaya mereka.
And indigenous people have the rights to revitalize, develop, and transmit to future generation their history, language, and oral tradition, including philosophy and writing system and literature.
Dan masyarakat adat memiliki hak untuk mewariskan budaya tradisi mereka termasuk filosofi dan literasi mereka.
And indigenous people have the right to establish their own educational system.
Dan masyarakat adat memiliki hak untuk membuat sistem edukasi mereka.
And indigenous people, the last one here, have the rights to dignity.
Dan masyarakat adat memiliki hak atas dignitas mereka. Martabat.
And diversity.
Dan keberagaman.
Of their cultures.
Atas budaya mereka.
Traditions.
Tradisi.
Histories.
Sejarah.
Aspirasi. Which shall be appropriately reflected in education.
Dan harus ditransmisikan dalam pendidikan.
And public information.
Dan
diinformasikan
ke publik.
Dalam informasi publik. Jadi tidak boleh lagi ada diskriminasi. Kita bebas untuk menyatakan identitas kita, educational system kita sendiri, dan saat ini kita juga suarakan kepada mainstream media untuk berhenti pemberitaan yang diskriminatif terhadap masyarakat adat.
Benar sekali.
Benar sekali.
Okay. Saya setuju.
Benar sekali ya Kak Sumarni. Dan apalagi Kak Sumarni, we still have a lot here, but what do you think is the most important thing right now that people have to understand about the rights of indigenous people?
I will use the quotes from Sak.
Sure.
My friends from Malaysia, the stories matters, and sometimes the people not really listens to our voice, and then because we are the minorities, karena masyarakat adat itu selalu menjadi minoritas dan selalu mengalami diskriminasi. Jadi pengakuan atas hak ini tadi benar-benar sangat sangat berharga gitu, karena ini memberikan ruang, memberikan tempat untuk masyarakat adat itu bisa bersuara dan bisa bertindak kayak gitu, menjadi bagian dari kebijakan, bagian dari orang-orang yang menentukan arah gitu, karena selalu top bottom approach, atau di mana orang-orang yang membuat hal-hal krusial tentang dunia ini, berbagai hal mengenai kebijakan segala macam itu selalu dari atas ke bawah gitu, seakan-akan mereka yang mengendalikan semuanya.
Betul sekali. Dan juga ada kabar baiknya adalah sekarang kebijakan-kebijakan internasional khususnya sudah banyak sekali melibatkan masyarakat adat.
Wah, itu luar
Jadi
biasa.
mulai dari UN, bahkan kemudian di level regional sampai kemudian juga nasional dalam beberapa negara. Indonesia juga memulainya ya, mereka mulai melibatkan masyarakat adat dalam pengambilan keputusan dan pengakuan hak-haknya. Namun PR kita masih panjang teman-teman semua, karena kita masih harus berjuang untuk melawan segala ketidakadilan, diskriminasi, dan segala macam bentuk perampasan hak hidup kepada masyarakat adat.
Ya. Mungkin ini waktunya buat kita gitu untuk benar-benar meresapi. Ini terlalu banyak tadi message yang disampaikan. Jadi let's take a moment for us, a minute, silent moment for every one of us here to really understand this message, to take this into your heart. Maybe we can start to take a silent moment, 1 minute silent moment for.
Jadi kita akan mengambil waktu 1 menit untuk berdiam, untuk menghormati bumi kita, menghormati leluhur kita, menghormati tanah kita, dan juga mengingat saudara-saudara kita yang juga mengalami perjuangan. Mungkin kita di sini di Kalimantan masih bisa aman, tetapi ada banyak saudara-saudara kita di tempat lain yang juga mengalami penganiayaan karena mereka berjuang untuk hak hidup mereka. Mari kita mengambil waktu 1 menit untuk berdiam dan meresapi identitas kita sebagai masyarakat adat.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes we have to be. One of my mentors, actually, this is very special. He always mentions that take your moments, just to really touch the grounds, understand what's going on, and then it will be a one silent moment that will change your life, your perspective of things.
That's true. So this is the time for us to gather our courage once again. Terjemahkan ke bahasa
Indonesia. Sekarang waktunya bagi kita untuk mengangkat spirit kita lagi, semangat kita.
Untuk mengumpulkan kembali energi kita. Karena perjuangan kita masih panjang. I speak in English, you translate in bahasa.
Oh yeah.
This is the time for us to collect our strength once again.
Ini adalah waktu bagi kita untuk mengumpulkan kekuatan kita sekali lagi.
No matter what's happening to us right now,
apapun yang terjadi pada kita saat ini,
we have that power.
Kita memiliki kekuatan tersebut.
We have that hope.
Kita memiliki harapan.
And of course,
dan tentu saja,
even though we are triggered by anger,
walaupun kita
trigger by anger,
dikuasai oleh rasa
dimulai
marah,
dengan rasa marah. And then also because of the feeling of injustice,
karena perasaan ketidakadilan
and disappointment,
kekecewaan,
but somehow,
tapi
we manage to fight with love.
Tapi kita bisa berjuang dengan cinta.
We manage to fight with passion.
Kita bisa berjuang dengan kesungguhan.
We manage to fight with the faithfulness to our ancestors and our grandparents.
Kita berjuang dengan kesetiaan kepada leluhur dan juga nenek-nenek moyang kita.
And our dedication to our Mother Earth.
Dan dedikasi kepada Ibu Bumi.
And this is the strength of indigenous communities.
Dan inilah kekuatan dari masyarakat adat.
Me,
saya,
you,
kamu,
we are the power.
Kita adalah kekuatan.
Oke, seperti itu. Iya.
Benar sekali ya.
Ya, tepuk tangan sekali lagi dimanapun teman-teman berada. Kami ucapkan selamat Hari Masyarakat
Adat.
Semangat
terus, khususnya para pemuda yang menjadi the next generation ya. Dan ya tentu saja, wah tidak disangka nih kalau waktu itu selalu terbang dengan mudahnya.
Betul sekali, terbang.
Itu sudah 1 jam ternyata bersama dengan kita di sini untuk
But this is the greatest show, right?
Yeah.
This is the greatest show because this is the moment where all these indigenous filmmakers and indigenous storytellers share their stories and being heard by the world, guys.
Luar biasa. Momen yang sangat luar biasa ya untuk kita para pembuat film, masyarakat adat berbagi cerita tentang komunitas mereka masing-masing.
Betul sekali.
Dan tentunya film festival ini itu tidak akan terjadi tentunya tanpa support begitu banyak orang yang bekerja dari bulan Februari ya awal tahun ini menyiapkan film festival ini. Dan kami ucapkan terima kasih untuk selection committee Kak Kilat Kasanang,
Pordayak Kak Kilat. Thank you.
From Pordayak, Brenda from Freedom Film Festival, and also Craig
Komanda from Wapikoni Mobile. They are from Canada.
Yeah, and also all the filmmakers.
Yes,
from Padang, Sumatera,
Nusa Tenggara
Timur, Papua, Kalimantan Tengah, Kalimantan Barat, Kalimantan Timur, Kalimantan Selatan, Malaysia juga bergabung bersama kita dan juga dari daerah Jawa.
Ada lagi yang ketinggalan?
Oh banyak, kita harus mention satu-satu para media partner yang telah membantu kita promosi.
Terima kasih banyak ya, seputaran Palangka, seputaran BJB, seputaran Kalbar, seputaran semua teman-teman yang telah membantu kita promosi.
Tawak Borneo,
iya, secara individual juga.
Terima kasih para speaker yang telah berbagi cerita, Riko, Wisa, Kak Dia, Ibu Ira, Ibu Helena, Desi, yang David Metcalf and Denise yang telah berbagi pengalaman dan cerita mereka untuk menginspirasi semua yang telah bergabung dalam film festival ini.
Betul sekali. And now this is the time for us to announce
Oh, satu lagi sebelum di thanks to the people that work behind the camera.
Definitely, we will mention later.
Okay.
Because right now we are going to announce the honorable mentions from the films that have been shown during this 2 days festival.
Yeah, the honorable films. We have 2 very special films that we select as the honorable mentions.
Yeah.
First is,
and this is selected by our selection committee, and also everyone's the working behind the scenes, and also we look into the feedback also from the audience, and also based on the discussion as well, right? And first honorable mention we would like to give to Kerubaki. Congratulations. Yeah, we would like to congratulate Kerubaki as an honorable mentions of Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festivals 2021, because we are so happy and glad to be able to hear the stories from Nusa Tenggara Timur.
And we also wanted to give honorable mentions to the lost art of seasonings. Yay!
Okay, and the second honorable mention is the lost art of seasoning. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
So we would like to congratulate the lost art of seasoning because we feel this film is incredible. It captured the history and traditional practice that have been done like 35 years ago, and the young people revive that traditional practice right now. So this is very valuable and precious film, and we would like to congratulate the filmmakers of Lost Art of Seasoning and also Kerubaki. Thank you so much for participating in these indigenous film festivals, and congratulations once again because you got this honorable mention from Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival. Give applause to Kerubaki and Lost Art of Seasoning. But of course also we also still have like one announcement for the best films. But previously I would like to say like all the films that have been selected as the official selections of Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festivals are great. It's all incredible because it has been selected by our selection committee. They are very notable persons in the filmmaking world also, and it receives a lot of feedback, good feedback also from our audience. But of course we need to select like one best films after these 2 days of screening. And then the best film
goes to
for Kalimantan International Indigenous Film Festival 2021 goes to 1, 2, 3 Balalek. Balalek, one place, different space. Congratulations. And all right. Maybe you can share, Sue, why Balalek got selected as the best film for this year.
Yeah, it's because everything in the film is very amazing. They show this, the issue about this, how the discrimination that happened to the indigenous farmer, especially the Dayak, and then how these measures can strongly deliver to the audience, with the so many techniques that they use in the films. That's incredible. And also in these discussions, they also talk deeply about this issue.
Right, and we feel like Balalek is a very important issue. It raised a very important issue right now, and also because of the works, like how it delivered the deep message in such a unique way. As you can see in Balalek film, the father and the son in one home, one house, but different frame, different space. And it happens a lot to us in this world, in the family, in the community, and even in the walk between indigenous and non-indigenous. But somehow we managed to overcome it. And of course, this is the reality that we have to accept. But it doesn't necessarily as a bad bad reality, no, but you are still in one place. And I guess this film challenged us to think about how can we continue to work together in this journey. So once again, we would like to congratulate the filmmaker of Balalek,
One Space
Hari
Different
Supiandi,
Yeah,
right?
Congratulations, Hari.
Alright, so this is the end of the show.
Yeah, but don't forget tomorrow in celebrations of the World Indigenous People Days, don't forget to join our campaigns.
Yes, and please, tomorrow we need you to join us in the online campaign. Please write something on the paper. Tolong tulis di kertas Anda. Sahkan RUU Masyarakat Adat. Mungkin bukan RUU kalau kita minta sahkan ya. Sahkan UU ya.
Undang-undang.
Sahkan Undang-Undang Masyarakat Adat. Posting fotomu pakai tulisan itu. Kita mau berjuang bersama, push bersama besok. Dan bisa tag ke Runaway Film Foundation, Indigenous Film Festival. Dan gunakan juga hashtag Indigenous People ya.
Ya, karena ini undang-undang, rancangan undang-undang sudah didiskusikan bertahun-tahun.
Sudah diperjuangkan masuk ke DPR itu bertahun-tahun nggak masuk-masuk. Tapi tahun ini masuk, saudara-saudara. Masuk Pak Eko.
Harus sah ya.
Iya. Ayo semangat juga Bang Rami juga, Bang Mohan kamu di sini. Right, so and tomorrow also we invite you also to post something about how proud you are as an indigenous person. Jadi untuk teman-teman besok mungkin bisa bergabung juga untuk posting sesuatu di sosial mediamu yang menyatakan betapa bangganya kamu menjadi masyarakat adat ya. Mungkin kamu bisa post menggunakan baju adatmu. Jadi ingat pembicaraan kita di show 1 tadi.
Baju.
Bukan untuk eksis tapi solidarity ya.
Baju, kemudian mungkin cerita, mungkin musik seperti yang dilakukan.
Iya, mungkin ada yang mau menyanyikan lagu tradisional dari sukunya. Besok posting aja di sosial media, tag Runaway Film Foundation dan Indigenous Film Festival biar kita rayakan bersama-sama.
Tunjukkan betapa bangganya kamu menjadi bagian masyarakat adat seperti yang di quotes dari Rico bahwa dari manapun kamu darah adat itu masih terus mengalir kayak gitu.
Betul sekali. Betul. Jadi itu besok ya teman-teman semua, dan tentu saja ini berbeda dengan rencana awal kita karena kita mau merencanakan celebration awalnya, tetapi karena ini situasi pandemi dan juga banyak orang sedang kesusahan sekarang, maka kita mengalihkan acara selebrasi kita rame-rame kita ke kampanye online. Dan alright, this is the end of the show. We would like to thank everyone that has been joining us since the day one. Thank you for all people behind the camera as well. Thank you so much.
Hope Center.
Ya, buat teman-teman di live chat silahkan kasih lope banyak-banyak untuk teman-teman belakang layar. Ya.
Teman-teman volunteer juga yang sudah bekerja keras. Terima kasih banyak.
Iya. So oke, jadi mari kita ucapkan saat ini Selamat Hari Masyarakat Adat
Selamat
Sedunia
Hari Masyarakat
ya 2021. Ada lagi? Sudah selesai semua? Kita nyanyi dulu ternyata. Ya lupa dulu. Saya saudara-saudara. Ani pakai hitung aku. Kami menyanyi dahulu lah. Udiro Diana tutup. Kita mengucapkan Selamat Hari Masyarakat Adat. Yuk kita nyanyi. Apa lagunya tadi? Rumah kita lewu takam. Ini lagu nih lah. Cek.
Tanpa hiasan, tanpa lukisan, beratap jerami, beralaskan tanah.
Namun semua ini punya kita. Memang semua ini milik kita sendiri.
Bujur iru irana lewu takam biar murun kan biar ketika kayu tapi iru salewu takam.
Hanya alam-alam ke rumah kita tanpa anyelir, tanpa melatih.
semua itu punya kita. Memang semua itu milik kita sendiri. Kita beranjak ke kota yang penuh dengan tanya. Di sini rumah kita sendiri. Semuanya ada di sini. Tempat tinggal kita tanpa hiasan, tanpa lukisan, beratap jerami beralaskan tanah. Namun semua ini punya kita. Memang semua ini milik kita. Lebih baik di sini. Rumah kita sendiri. Oh, segala nikmat dan anugerah yang kuasa. Semuanya ada di sini. Sekali lagi, lebih baik di mana? Lebih baik di sini. Lebih baik di sini. Rumah kita sendiri. Oh, segala nikmat dan anugerah yang kuasa. Semuanya ada di sini. Rumah kita ada di sini.
Mari saat ini kita ucapkan Selamat Hari Masyarakat